Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tough Lift Podcast. It's been a hot second, been busy here in Michigan with lots of things going on, but everything's been good. This is episode 29, and I'm bringing a friend from Fort Worth, Texas. This is Chris Lofland of Blue Wave Weightlifting. Chris, go ahead and say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
So those of you joining in on video, watching us on YouTube or Spotify's video, it is late at night here. 10:25. We tried to do this another time, but both of us actually botched the time ourselves. And now we are squeezing it in while both of us have busy schedules, just trying to knock everything out in the weightlifting world we can. So, but Chris here, we met years ago on a trip to Poland, ironically. Many moons ago. It was Poland, right?
San Marino.
No, it's San Marino. That's right.
Yeah.
Poland was a different coach I met for first.
It's all right. Are you sure you have the right person? Were you trying to invite me? Okay.
No, she was Poland.
Yeah.
You were San Marino, and well, first of all, that we'll just make that a trivia question in itself. Does anyone know?
Yeah.
Does anyone know where that actually is? Did Chris just make up a fucking country, a city-state, if you will? There's a hint of where it is, because I have the flag in the gym and nobody knows what it is.
Nice.
So it's a good trivia question. And like the kids, I'll be like, if you guys can name what country that is, you don't have to do the last round. And they always have to do the last round. But yeah, we met on a weightlifting competition while we were there with our athletes, and we bumped heads on a lot of different topics, just talking on different things. And I found out he had a cool background in gymnastics. So beyond that, though, our gyms have, I guess we'd say our gyms are kind of like in the same age. So we've kind of gone through some of the same growing pains, some of the cool things about having gyms and owning them, and then some of the not so cool things about owning gyms, being sole proprietors and stuff like that. So we were able to get a lot of good talking done, became friends, and since then have just kind of always shared platforms at meets and hung out and got to see each other grow. It's been great. But I wanted to have Chris on because Chris has a pretty interesting background in gymnastics as a gymnastics coach, right? You were a gymnastics athlete and coach. So not a background you generally see in weightlifting. Usually you see either like some sort of sports coach, like football, or general strength and conditioning, and or they were a weightlifter and got into it. Or nowadays you see the CrossFitter that just, bled into the sport. So so definitely wanted to get that background on there. His clubs continue to build some amazing athletes. I get to watch them obviously compete. We've competed against you a few times with other athletes. Just a lot of good stuff there. Got some notes over here to my left, just making sure I want to talk on everything we have. But really today's episode is going to be talking about integrating gymnastics training and or Chris's ideas and opinions on integrating gymnastics training into weightlifting. Because I think a lot of people are kind of like clawing at it and they want to do it and they know it's beneficial. And maybe today we can shed some light on how to actually do it, possibly in a more efficient way, not just being like, go learn how to handstand walk, which seems to be kind of like the bin everyone throws everything in.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can get something out of here for you guys that is beneficial to you, whether you're an athlete or whether you're a coach. But first, Chris, like, tell us something about you, man. Let's hear the story of like who you are, like your background, how you got into it, and like how you wound up in weightlifting.
Sure. So like you said, my background growing up, I did gymnastics myself. I was mediocre best. I got to a pretty high level on a couple of events, but while I was training, that was also kind of my way to afford my coaching. Being coached was to coach myself. So I started coaching young kids from a really early age while I was doing gymnastics myself. Then I kind of stuck with it, kind of worked my way up into the coaching side of it. Coached for many years. Bounced around to a few different gyms coaching. Probably my highest level that I coached in gymnastics, if y'all are familiar with it, gymnastics kind of has like the level 1 through 10 and then elite. So I've spent a majority of my time teaching level 6 through 8 women's gymnastics. Did that for many years. And then one of the gyms that I was coaching at had kind of like a side gym that had just some general fitness stuff and things like that. They decided to change that into a CrossFit gym. People started kind of showing up wanting to get some more help on gymnastics and gymnastic stuff. And I was like, sure. And then kind of through that CrossFit club, CJ Del Basso, I'm not sure if you know him. He still runs a club. He ran Lone Star Weightlifting, but he's a big youth coach. He was coming in and doing some like weightlifting seminars and clinics. So I got interested in weightlifting. I started doing weightlifting myself back in 2008, maybe, somewhere around there. I was doing that for a while, kind of in my own interests. Picked up some training partners. As training partners, we started kind of coaching each other. Through the coaching each other, just kind of picked up a few athletes here and there. And then I branched off and decided to open up Blue Wave in 2015. Main reason why I went the strength and conditioning route and weightlifting route was just because it's way too expensive to open a gymnastics gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot easier to buy.
Verbatim, because one of the projects in college, we had to, because my degree's in sports fitness and entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, we had to start a business plan for a small business, and we could not do something we were already in.
Yeah.
So I did gymnastics facility. I on my computer have a business plan for it, and I know how expensive it is. Like the actual, not just like I know it's expensive, like verbatim, item by item, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
way.
Exactly. So I was trying to make a living and doing gymnastics, but it's kind of like any kind of assistant coach position. There really wasn't a whole lot of money in that. And so it kind of just came down to if I want to, have a living being a gym rat, then I'm going to have to go into the fitness side of things. So I kind of opened up Blue Wave with the idea that my strength and conditioning and personal training was going to kind of be my moneymaker, and weightlifting was just going to be a side project because I like doing it myself. I was already training probably about 4 or 5 athletes. So we set up a few platforms, and then just as I've been running it over the last almost a decade now, weightlifting was the program that just kind of kept gaining momentum, which I was totally fine with. It was the side project that I did because it was my interest. And I kind of got to the point where I was able to dwindle down all of the strength and conditioning and other types of training and just kind of ramp up the weightlifting. Now about 90% of what we do at the gym is weightlifting, and about 10% of it is personal training and fitness.
Wow. Damn. So how, I don't think you'll be offended, but how old were you when you, I guess, started like the gym?
Man, I got to do math now. So I was 30 years old.
Okay. So would you say like you got into like the barbell stuff in like mid 20s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty common age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's about when I, like mine was like early 20s, because after I took my injury, like that's when I started kind of getting into that type of stuff.
Yeah. I was about as good. I was a mediocre gymnast. I was kind of a mediocre weightlifter. I competed at some nationals and stuff like that, but it was about it.
Yeah. No, I feel you there, man. Mediocre, medium. I get it.
I'm medium at a lot of things.
People, hey man, it's better than being worse or last at everything.
Yeah, there you go.
People always, they like find out, or somebody tells them like, coach went to regionals for CrossFit. It's like, whoa, like that was in 2000 teens. There was a different world back then.
Yeah, exactly. People don't
get it, but
yeah. So like I was involved in the CrossFit scene for a while because we were one of the first gyms that kind of took it on. Our gymnastics gym was.
Yeah.
So I was actually the MC 2 years in a row for the CrossFit regionals because we hosted it there at GSX here in Fort Worth.
I tried out for MD, so you can fuck off. Yeah, I got beat out by Kiki.
Yeah, and then I did the CrossFit gymnastics courses for many years too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going around teaching CrossFitters how to do muscle ups and handstands and
Yeah, we
stuff like that.
man, who was the big CrossFit gymnastics? Paoloni, right? Wasn't
Uh,
Paoloni was like
yes, so
he was one of them.
he wasn't part of the gymnastics certifications, but
Yeah,
he would go around and do like his own
Paoli,
gymnastics seminar for
Paoli,
yeah,
Carl
Paoli,
Paoli.
Carl Paoli. He's actually a really nice guy. We spent many years talking back and forth on implementing gymnastics into fitness and stuff like that. He's a very, very interesting person. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
he always seemed like a cool guy. So,
yeah, very cool
um,
guy.
but yeah, no, it's a background. Whether like your story's gymnastics or like mine was army then CrossFit. It's like the same story kind of keeps coming to breath. Is like we were in another sport, and then it just kind of came down to the barbell, and there was something special and unique about the barbell that brought us to it. And
Yeah,
then
yeah. I mean,
we get stuck with the barbell.
yeah, exactly. I
That's
mean, I think somewhere like the bridging with like gymnastics, and I could see how this would probably be also with like maybe army too, though, is you just kind of have to hammer something over and over and over and over and over and over and get slightly better at it, slightly better over a long span of time. And I do think there's a lot of people that just don't quite have the patience for that. But then I think there's certain people that get more, probably a little bit more obsessive about that they just want to get better at one. They want to become an expert at something.
Yeah. Or we're both obsessed with like defying gravity because I was a paratrooper. So like something about
Oh yeah, yeah,
a
yeah,
thin piece of like silk holding me up and
yeah,
you doing some crazy trick off of something or through
yeah,
the
yeah.
wings
I
and
definitely
stuff
was
like
a little
that.
bit of a adrenaline junkie. I jumped out of
Yeah.
my fair share of, airplanes, and
Yeah,
I
exactly.
did in between. I dove for a few years, did diving for a little
Oh
while.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
basically aerial gymnastics into a pool, right?
Yeah, another really easy transition. I was in between gymnastics gyms at the time because I just left, and so I didn't have anywhere to go. So I went and found a nearby diving school, and jumped in that for a couple years. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, man, gymnastics. I was always interested in the gymnastics stuff, and it was because like when I was in the army and I was doing CrossFit stuff, it was like that's clearly not something we excel at in the army. Everyone in the army is all about like be brute and jacked.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would I would put my time into the Olympic weightlifting stuff because it required flexibility and range of motion, and while
Mhm.
I was injured, that's all I could work on. But that allowed me to garner like this wild flexibility that nobody else had. So I was like, well, I'm going to utilize this for the gymnastic stuff.
For sure.
And I excelled at the gymnastic stuff. It was pretty interesting. And people be like, Adam Chuck's so flexible. And even now at the gym, people I think are like, when I like do stuff or like stretch or do certain movements, they're just like, how the fuck do you do that? You're like 36-year-old Matt, and you're all beat up, but you're more flexible than most of the members. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like I just did it a lot, but
Yeah,
it, I always have sat there and told my athletes that like the flexibility is only part of it, right? We need the flexibility, the passive range of motion and stuff, but then it's also like the coordination to manage the muscle groups, to manage the bones that
hmm
got the load and stuff like that. So like the first question I wanted to bring to light is really, I have it over here, is like I'm a huge component of like, I kind of say like sometimes I'm like a woo-woo coach. Like I'm not your typical weightlifting coach of like just get fucking strong and try hard. Like there's a lot more components going on, and I think
yeah,
coaching there's like a paradigm shift going to where there's like more using our head coaching. Is kind
yeah,
of how I say. And when it comes to like balance and coordination, I feel like these are two areas that weren't really like focused on in training. It was just like do it, and you know balance and coordination. These are massive components of our sport. And I
yeah,
think a lot of times coaches and athletes just kind of pass them. They don't care about them. They're never worked. They're never executed. And even down to like the youth levels, it's like, oh, you're a youth weightlifter, and what do? They just snatch. They just clean
yeah,
jerk. And
yeah,
it's a passive approach. It's like, well, they can hold the snatch balance. It's like, yeah, that's not like actually
that,
working any balance. It's a minimal
yeah,
amount of balance they're working as an athlete. So one of the biggest things I first as a weightlifter, because I like didn't have much as a CrossFitter going to weightlifting.
hmm
I had like enough to get me good at CrossFit and what I needed. But when I shifted to weightlifting, I was still like trying to just be kind of like ooga ooga, big brute. He's
Yeah,
stronger than everyone. And as a military guy, I understood like the slowest move, smoothest fast, operate with coordination versus just
yeah,
operate with speed, because speed will get you killed, to be blunt, if you're not able
yeah.
to operate in it. Um, so there was like that connection in weightlifting of like, man, I gotta get coordinated and I have to have balance and timing to get coordinated. And the coach I was working with was all about it actually. He worked in Japan for a few years and they're very big on that in the weightlifting schools.
That's
Um,
cool. Yeah.
and it's not as like romantic as we want to make it and like the
No.
movies and shit
Yeah,
make
yeah. It's pretty basic. Yeah, yeah,
it just taught. It's
yeah.
talked about, whereas here it's not. What are like some tips or tricks, reinforcements, or like things maybe you've addressed or talked about in your gym to help your
Sure.
athletes understand like, hey, this coordination piece and balance, these are really important to our lifts? Because I know what I say, but I want to hear kind of how you approach this with your athletes.
Yeah, so I approach a lot of it with movement in general. So, incorporating some of the basic coordination, balance, and stuff like that into warm-ups and accessory exercises. But then I'm probably a little bit more of a stickler on how those accessory exercises are also executed. So, for example, if they're warming up and they're doing something like a bear crawl, or like a bear crawl where maybe their knees are bent and so their back is parallel to the ground, I'm making sure that their hips aren't shifting. I want them to learn to step contralateral. Most people try to do ipsilateral type movements when they're doing those warm up exercises or locomotion kind of, dynamic warm ups. And so I kind of get a little bit stickler on how they kind of move through those things. And so I can kind of sneak it in with them here and there. And so I do a little bit more movement selection and then making sure that they're executing those movements that way. Then it also depends on the athletes that I'm getting. I mean, if I get somebody who has a very extensive athletic background, I don't have to spend quite as much time with that
Yeah.
because they already move pretty well. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Youth athletes have to be doing athletic movements, coordination movements, balance movements, almost just as much as they're doing the weightlifting movements.
Yeah.
They have to develop that because if their sport is coming up in weightlifting, they're missing out on a lot of those other things that you would get in gymnastics, that you would get in, even some of the ball sports and things like that, because they
I've
might
actually
not have those exposures.
tell parents, not to cut you off, but I've told parents like, no, Johnny has to keep playing basketball.
Yeah,
He
yeah, yeah,
can't quit. Like I don't give a shit if he
yeah, yeah,
benched and just goes to practice. He has to keep doing it. He's not just doing
yeah.
weightlifting. It
Yeah,
makes
because the more
harder.
coordinated, yeah, the more coordinated they get, because you're looking for repetition, looking at
Yep.
repetition. So the more coordinated they get through repetition of something else, whether it's throwing and catching, or walking across a balance beam, or even just learning how to jump right, all those kind of things. I think people in weightlifting steer away from a lot of those exercises because we know what should be prioritized. But if you haven't developed the balance, the coordination, the athleticism, then it's going to have to be your job to do that.
Yeah.
So I will say it's a little bit more individual based, especially if we're talking about my senior athletes. A lot of them, I just kind of try to sneak in balancing, coordination type drills. With our youth, we definitely implement, and our youth coach, Miguel, he does a really good job at trying to make them athletes and not just weightlifters,
Yep.
you know.
Awesome. Yeah. With your with that, like your athletes that come in that have maybe extensive athletic background, obviously, like I'm sure they're going to need less, like you had mentioned, but like let's say you have the athlete that like it's just like John, and John rides a desk at the auto plant, and that's his background. Like I joke around, I call them purebreds. Like they have no
Yeah,
bad because they have no athletic background.
yeah.
Um, like and balance and coordination is just like awful. But like, and this is more like a business question too. Is like they're there to weight lift, right? So they want to learn
hmm
how to weight lift, but like as a coach, you're like, yeah, but like you should probably be doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So we're doing better. So how do you kind of balance that with people like that are athletes that are
So
really excited?
Yeah. When they just really don't move really well, they haven't quite figured out how to move their body and stuff like that.
Yeah, what's your
I
trick?
do I do a lot of what in the movement world we call it locomotion.
Hmm.
But your crawls, your steps, your different types of things, and then we've got a lot that we've stolen from gymnastics. So I have a lot of exercises where they're shifting their weight from their feet to their hands back and forth, where they're moving in those contralateral movements through different types of locomotions, where they're stepping forward and backwards with different legs, or they're balancing with different legs. And so I've got kind of a whole locomotion routine that goes through 3 phases: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So they can also try to progress in those exercises as well.
That's awesome.
But again, I can kind of sneak it in there as here's what your warm up routine is going to be every single day. And also, once I start seeing you performing this really, really well, then I'm going to give you a harder version of that.
Hmm.
And that's where that's exactly how we progress people in gymnastics too. We have a level system. Once
Yeah.
you can do this, you go to this. And so I'm a big component of progressively increasing complexity, especially with accessory exercises. Sometimes I don't think it's really necessary to just keep adding reps. I think I can get more out of, okay, if we're strong at this, let's try to make it a little bit more complex. For example, if it was like, if I've got a lot of my body weight strength exercises, I have laid out almost in like a level system. So I
Yeah.
might have on the program that they're supposed to be doing 3 sets of 10 pull-ups, but that's going to look different for each person. They might be in a very early stage, so they're starting with chin hangs,
Hmm.
and then they're going to negatives, and then they might be progressing to first the supinated grip, then pronated grip, and then from the pronated grip, they'll eventually be pulling up to their chest, add weight, so you can always kind of make the movement a little bit more complex where you get a little bit more and more out of it
Yeah.
as they continue to develop it, as opposed to just adding reps or adding weight. So there's a
Yeah.
couple
A
of
lot of
different
coaches
approaches
do
there.
that. A lot of coaches do
Yeah.
that. Get caught up in the just add more repetitions to it, and
Yeah.
it's like yeah, but I mean, come on, guys, like they don't need to do 5 sets of 25 push-ups. Like this is not
Yeah. Yeah.
1985 army methods. Like we
Yeah.
could
Exactly.
probably do better here.
Yeah, and I like doing that with some of my basic movements all the way through the training cycle. So like there's a couple like we usually have a pull up variation all the way through the training cycle,
Yep.
but we might be starting out with everybody's doing the chin up version, and that's going to be in there for a few weeks, and then we're going to go to the pull up version. Then we might go to a weighted pull up version. We might take the weight off and just increase the range of motion so that we're kind of deloading them getting into it, but then they might be pulling up to their chest. So we can also kind of progress them across the way to try to get a little bit more out of it. And then you're right, you're not just doing the same thing or just adding the same reps. And I do think that I think people benefit from doing, I mean, we see it, we benefit from doing variations of the lifts. I think people benefit from doing variations of all movements.
Oh yeah, absolutely. While we're on the topic, because we were talking about this the other day, how often, it's like a multi-part question, so like how often do you program like pull-up variations for like your average athletes that are like going to meets and stuff, competitive?
I actually have pull-up variations, so hence variations, because it depends on the athlete. I have pull-ups in it year round,
Yeah.
every single cycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I pretty much do pull-ups. I do the 2 exercises that are almost always in mine as far as body weight exercises go are pull-ups and dips.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I don't want to blow your head, like I don't want to
Sure.
blow your mind, get all crazy, but like you do know most of our peers do not program fucking pull-ups at all, right?
Yeah, I've
Like
heard
this
from a
is
few
one of the
people.
this is one of the things, like one of my first coaches, he told me, he's like, I will fuck you up basically if you are not deloading your athletes with pull-ups.
Yeah.
And he used it, he didn't even use it from like the concept of like the lat development and that. He literally was just alone, like, and this is again one of the things he learned when he was like in Japan with the coach he worked with, is like we're constantly compressing our spines. So like
Yeah. Yeah,
program pull-ups because your athletes literally, even if they can't do the pull-ups, let's say Susie can't do pull-ups, even if she's hanging on that bar trying,
exactly.
we're deloading her spine and body
And you
for
get the
that
same
amount of
thing
time
with,
trying.
yeah, and you get the same thing in the support of the dip too. Your low back, you get a lot of decompression. You can almost get a little bit more because there's less tension there. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, exactly. You got to consider the multiple facets of what you can get out of these movements.
Yep.
And
And every time I hear a coach be like, I never program pull-ups, I'm just like,
when I
interesting.
hear that, I mean, they have their reasons, but in my mind, I'm uh, like, like they might feel like they don't get much out of it because maybe a lot of people aren't very good at it, and I guess that's a fair argument, but that's why I'll make sure that I have progressions for the pull-ups,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I was gonna say I find, and call it a like a hot take, but I find it's a lack of fucking creativity and laziness
Sure,
for
sure.
a lot of the populations that I think me and you know who and the archetype we're talking about. It's
Hmm.
a lot of lack of creativity, and I've never done that, and I'm not gonna start today type bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
So
And there's a lot of probably a lot of purists out there, but everybody's influenced by their background. I'm sure if you grew up and you were doing the 5x5s your whole life and everything was snatch and clean and jerk, you're like, I got pretty good at it doing this. That's what everybody else is going to do. We're not going to do anything else.
yeah,
I'm sure there's some influence there, but to each their own. My athletes are going to do
yep,
them. Yeah, so yeah, I like to. I find like what you were saying, not only thinking about the pull up as a development of pulling down and developing those muscles, but there's other things. You're decompressing the spine. Our shoulders are being loaded over and over and over. It's actually you get to hang from your shoulders, which hanging is very benefit.
oh yeah,
So you go to a complete lockout position as well. I mean, there's so many other things that you're getting in that outside of just it being a pull up and just maybe the strength or hypertrophy you get from just doing the pull up,
oh yeah.
which is like my goal when I'm looking for accessory exercises is what are things that are going to cover as much as possible. And I always think that the pull up and the dip cover a lot. And so I'm going to have them in my program again, we do them every training cycle year round.
Forever.
Those are two movements they won't get away from.
Yeah. Whether they like it or not, they're doing it.
Yep.
Good answer. Awesome. So like the other thing that I wanted to chat on kind of is like so this was a question that came from one of my coaches, Richard, who Richard just got done with like his internship with us.
Cool.
He's now coaching full time pretty much like at the gym, and then he's potentially taking over like another club in the area and working with those athletes while also with us. So he's doing a lot of coaching, so he's got a lot of good questions, and he's eager, excited for stuff. So I was telling him, I sent a message out and I was like, hey, what questions do you have? And his question was basically like like I said, we were talking about pull-ups, but if a gymnast finds themselves struggling with aspects of strength or conditioning, how does their coach or a coach go about addressing those weaknesses? Like, we know we don't want to put much mass on them because we'd assume like it'll
Hmm.
affect them, but like it's going to adversely affect their performance, putting on a bunch of weight. So how do like the coaches, modern or old school, you kind of pick the answer you want, train to like outdo those weaknesses? Is there ever a chunk of time allocated to plyometrics or body weight or even barbells maybe nowadays where like they're just working strength in those areas?
Yeah, I think it's way better now. Again, I haven't really been in the gymnastics coaching scene for a long time. Back in my day, it was very old school mentality.
The worst when we have
Uh,
to say that.
yeah, you would run into kind of some of the stuff we were just talking about where they're like, no, your legs just need to be fast and agile and as small as possible. We want to get your upper body and your core as big and as strong as possible. Um, but I do think that that can lead to a lot of injuries, and I think they're starting to see that leads to a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
As far as what I know now, with a lot of these like college programs, I know as soon as like you get into a college for a gymnastics scholarship, they don't even put you in the gymnastics gym right away. They put you in the strength and conditioning program,
Oh wow.
and they kind of just make sure that they're well-rounded, put a little bit of size on them, make sure they're kind of more hardy because they need them to last, over the span of their 4 years.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's been a big shift in that recently, or at least that's from what I've heard. There's been a big shift because, I used the same argument. When I was in gymnastics, I tore my ACL, and my knees never felt more stable or strong until I actually started squatting and all that.
Yeah.
Turns out that I'm a smaller frame person. They were always afraid that, you're going to put a lot of size on your legs. My legs didn't just blow up. I didn't just all of a sudden have massive legs. Like, I wouldn't have squatted or trained exactly the same way, but I definitely would have done some more weighted lower body exercises as opposed to primarily plyometrics. We would do like body weight single leg squats and things like that, but back then we never added weight to our lower body. It was almost always body weight exercises, and I could definitely tell that my ankles and my knees and all that were probably a little more fragile. I do think that that's shifted a lot now.
Yeah.
But we weren't doing it with our athletes.
We have like modern reports of like injury rates versus 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Like,
it's a great question. It probably would have been something good for me to look up before this podcast.
Maybe to put you on a spot.
But to be quite honest,
representing the Olympic gymnastics.
Yeah. The only preparation I actually did was I ate a massive Chipotle bowl.
Time's right. That's
yeah. I would like to see that, but I would be very surprised. I'm sure that information's out there because I have heard recently that it's still plugged in a little bit. I still go to a lot of their events. I talk to some people here and there. And I do know that a lot of these college programs, like the first thing they do is they put them in the weight gym as opposed to getting them out there on the apparatus. They're like, we got you in because we know that you're skilled. We know that you have the talent. Now we got to make now we got to give some longevity and make you a hardy gymnast for our program. And so that's like a lot of what they implement right from the get-go. So they do spend some time right when they come in. And then there are kind of like seasons as well in gymnastics. So there's a lot of time where you're doing a lot more, strength and conditioning development along with trying to basically learn new skills. Then once it starts getting closer to gymnastics season, you put everything back together to a routine, and then you're almost just growing through your routine, just practicing elements of your routine until you can do them in your sleep, and then you go perform them.
Yeah. That sounds like another sport that maybe.
Yeah. You kind of break it apart and then put it back together.
They practice a lot. Generally, that's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Some people believe you're just supposed to fucking go hard and then like YOLO.
Yep.
At the meet, YOLO.
Doesn't matter how you feel.
Yeah, just fucking full send on a bitch. See how the meet ends up.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, because I think that's one of the big faux pas is everybody just assumes like, oh, you're a gymnast, so you don't know anything about weightlifting. You don't do any weight training. You've never done.
Yeah. I don't know what they would be doing, exactly they're doing nowadays. But we would use some weights for most of the weights we would actually use would be for mobility training, so joint stuff. A lot of weights for that. Obviously, a lot of the strength stuff we could do was already worked in, so working elements on the rings and stuff like that. But a lot of the weights that we used was more for mobility back then, and then we would use some weights for stretching as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a few coaches, like you can find them online, that are starting to implement weight training into like their gymnastics facilities, and or like they have kids that their own kids did CrossFit and then started weightlifting while they were doing gymnastics, and since then they've then integrated more of it into their facility and stuff like that. So I still train
a young gymnast right now because she goes and does her gymnastics, and then she comes to me to basically kind of get her strength training in, and it's all
Yeah.
for, she needs to accelerate her strength, and she needs to, it does help prevent injury as well.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is like that right there out of anything, even if you're just moving a bar, they've had studies that just show like it just protects the joints, like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah.
movements in general. So the last question I kind of have is like, from your experience of doing this and then obviously shifting to weightlifting, let's get some Chris experience out here for coaches and athletes. Two scenarios, you have athlete and coach A. Athlete and coach A, coach is working with beginner. Beginner moves the bar fine, no like massive range of motion issues, but like what are you looking at that coach and being like, hey man, here's the secret sauce, these 3 movements I would have your athlete do as much as you could from the gymnastics world to get like good at weightlifting or give them a better.
Oh, yeah. So like basically like what accessory exercises would we kind of maybe pull from gymnastics to
Yeah.
benefit a beginner lifter? Um, Pull-ups and dips.
Yeah.
But it's a good question. I tend to cycle exercises all the time. I mean, this isn't going to answer it as direct probably as you want, but I'll kind of just go into like what
It's a
the.
2-part. So you have another one coming
Oh,
right
do
after.
I? Do I? Okay. Oh shit.
I'll help you. The second one's gonna be the same question, but this is like elite athletes from another country are like, hey, we know we're missing something. What do you got for us? What are your 3 things?
Yeah.
So it's like the polar opposite.
Okay. So looking at any individual athlete, you know, I'm always looking with the accessory exercises is to cover a few main things. My accessory exercise, the way I look at accessories, and these are not accessories with the barbell, not your, not a front squat, not a, an overhead press or anything like that. The stuff that we're doing completely aside. Is are usually looking for anything that benefits their mobility, especially if there's deficits in mobility. And so it would depend on that person. One that I pretty much have all of our beginners on, so this could be part A, is we do like weighted pass-throughs. So we do the pass-through movements where they're taking their shoulders kind of through that full range of motion. At first, obviously, it's just they need to be able to do it without weight.
Yeah.
So, and then once they can do it without weight, we progress it to add a little bit of weight. They're never doing anything crazy. We never increase their weight until they've done it for about 8 to 12 weeks with just a specific weight. And that's just because a lot of that connective tissue doesn't, regrow or progress as fast as like muscle. Muscle can metabolize pretty fast, and you can gain muscle pretty quickly. A lot of the connective tissue just takes a little slower process. So we just make sure we don't rush it. So at 8 to 12 weeks, they're like, okay, this is getting easy. We add a little bit of weight to it, and they do that. So the weighted pass-through I like because I think it also protects their shoulders. If the bar lands forward, the bar lands backwards, we at least have the range of motion. And then we eventually put a little bit of weight on the bar, the PVC or the dowel, so that way that range of motion is being controlled as well. So the weighted pass-through is probably one that I'll have almost everybody doing from the very, very beginning stages. But again, and then, so we're looking for something mobility based. Then we're going to be looking for something that probably has a strength or hypertrophy deficit. So are they super shaky overhead? Do we need to address that? Do we need them doing just some straight arm planks?
I feel attacked.
So then with that person, I would implement a lot of straight arm strength training. Which could be as simple as straight arm planks or, plange rocks where your arms are straight and you just are kind of shifting your shoulders slightly over your hands.
Yeah.
So then the arms have to try to stay straight when stressing the shoulders. And then those could progress as simple as to, a slightly inclined handstand or something like that.
Nice.
So some straight arm stability, some straight arm strength, if that was an issue with that person. So then you're looking for deficits in strength or hypertrophy. And then I would probably be looking for anything that's causing them pain. And so then my last bit would probably be in your kind of injury mitigation that we might need. Does this person have shoulder issues already? So we probably would be doing a lot of, in gymnastics, we do a lot of banded stuff, like a crossover symmetry type thing.
Mhm.
Or has this person got terrible knees? Do we need to be doing some, isometric holds, some sled drags, some Spanish squats? So then the next approach is going to be, how do we mitigate any injuries that they're coming in with or any pain that they're getting right from the get-go?
Yeah. The amount of gyms that still don't know about like crossover symmetry and that whole system to this day is astonishing.
Yeah. So the banded work on the shoulders is really, really beneficial. I mean, I've got tons of people that have the achy shoulders, and it's just part of their everyday routine. They come in and they do their crossover symmetry, and then they get going. And nine times out of 10 might be a little exaggerated, but a lot of times when somebody's having like front shoulder pain, I can put them on the crossover symmetry for like 2 weeks and it goes away.
Yep. Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff.
Muscles just need that little bit of resistance, and they wake up and do their job properly. It's like, oh my God. It's like, yeah. Well, what did you think was going to happen? Like they're working now how they should be.
Yeah.
You just had to.
And you'd be surprised how many people who are super sore from doing it their first time too. They're like, I've been doing all this entire time, and then I do this little banded shit, and I feel beat up. It's like, yeah, you're hitting a lot of these weaknesses that you don't normally hit.
We get that when we get them using their low traps properly.
Mm-hmm. Trying to get them out of being shrugged the whole time. Yeah.
They always come back after like a week of doing it, 2 weeks of doing that. Like, dude, my low traps are like sore from the crossover. I'm like, yeah, imagine if you start using them to lift. That'd be fucking crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of that is like a coordination thing. You learn how to like tense different areas of your back, different muscle groups. You're trying to keep the shoulders down. You're trying to keep those lower traps engaged. A lot of people don't really know how to do it. It's not a real typical, area that you would focus on. It's not taught. It's not taught.
We talked about this because I taught at USAW level 1 this weekend, and like we talked about it. It's like not our job to like go into depth on this too far in the USAW ones, and like but like you teach how to hold the bar overhead safely first when you're working with beginner athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're looking for in the beginning, is like holding the bar, securing the bar overhead, like getting them and like ensuring it's the low trap every time versus like them locking out and using their shoulders as in multiple muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really the first goal, is safety.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then you like, you're just kind of working on it, and then it becomes like this upper trap monster that you then got to go backwards on a little bit to be like, hey, no, we got to use our low trap. And one of my girls, like, the poor thing had like lockout issues for a long time, and like we just talked, and I was like, we got to just use more low trap. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, it's like you're just using your upper trap, and like you got to turn over fast and lock it in that low trap, so you're now locked in. You're not like this and pushing it forward. And I said, we watched some videos together. She kind of went down the rabbit hole. She's like, I've been fucking doing this wrong the whole time. I was like, no. We talked about it, but like things evolve and we get in a groove and like the body takes over. Like, let's just focus on it for like a little bit. Like, you'll be fine. Don't think you've been like fucking wrong the whole time.
Yeah. We're adding something to it.
Yeah. It's like, we're dusting it off, right? And like she PR'd finally by like 2 kilos the other day, and it's like after a long time of not linking that piece back into it. But it's like hard also because, like you said, it's coordination. You have 17 other movements going on.
Absolutely, yeah, and it might be something that was addressed early on when you're kind of learning how to maybe like get set for the lift, but then you're progressing to working on so many other things that it just kind of gets a little bit lost in there. I like to still do like clinics just at my gym on a regular basis, where
Yeah.
we basically just kind of go back over the 101s. And a lot
Yep.
of times, even people that have been doing it for years are like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about
Yep.
that.
Yep.
You know, I do a little drill where I get them to understand what retraction, protraction, elevation, depression, and rotation is of the shoulder blades.
I like
And
that.
then we kind of play a game where I will cue certain ones, but then it might be, you know, elevate and rotate, depress and retract,
No,
you
it's
know,
like
to
a
try to
Simon
get them,
Says, or like yeah.
try to get them to learn what's going on in their back, you know, and you'd be surprised at how many people get really, really lost, and they have a hard time. Like, all right, if I've got, you know, if I'm in depression, then how do I retract, or how do I do elevation and protraction? You know, they
Yeah.
just kind of get lost in all that, but but again, it's one of those coordination drills. But then when I tell them exactly what I want, they're like, okay, I know how to cue that.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's a really good idea. Yeah, and it kind of like round robins the whole podcast, like the whole coordination piece we talked about in the beginning. It's like
Yeah, for sure.
what people don't understand about like the way your neurons work and your neurons and dendrites and firing off together and repeated synapse patterns and all these things is like this is by just practicing something like as simple as like an agility ladder. It
Yeah.
allows your body to like figure out these patterns when you want to do complicated shit
Mm-hmm.
like Olympic lifts and being able to drive, extend, pull the bar up along you, pull under it, quickly snap into something and extend and reach through your low trap, locking into it while maintaining balance and loading a load into you through flat feet, etc. It's like, yeah, man, the agility ladder, believe it or not, yeah, you're not going to play the NFL, but like it helps with all this other shit. That's why coordination and balance and all this stuff actually
Yeah, all
helps.
those little small things, like learning those little small things or repeating those little small things just makes it so much easier when you're trying to do something like big and complex. And even though they might not seem like they have a direct link over to snatch and clean and jerk, they do, because there's a reason why a lot of gymnasts do well transitioning from gymnasts to weightlifting.
Yeah.
And it's most of it is just the coordination aspect of it. You know, you tell them to, you know, set your back here, lower your hips, you know, squeeze your mid traps, you know, anterior tilt, posterior pelvic tilt. Like they understand all those things already. And then a lot of it is they start to develop what is most efficient pretty naturally too, you know. So then you also might not even need to be telling them quite as much, because they just kind of already have that coordination to figure out a lot of movement.
Yep.
You know, I'm also a big proponent of not like overcoaching when you don't need to overcoach.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of people that if you just waited 2 more reps, like they kind of figured it out, you know. So it's like let them lift, then talk to them. Don't be like giving them 8 things to do in the middle of their, you know, lifts. Let them finish, see how they do, you know, watch their first lift. They might correct it on the second lift. I mean, one of the best things about doing, you know, jerk doubles is the first one's out in front. You don't say anything. They do their second one and it's right where it needs to be. All right, you figured it out, you know, good work, you know?
Yeah, we talk about that, and like it's we actually talked about it on the same topic this weekend, again, the USAW course, and like the hosting, and like one of the athletes was like, how do you feel about cueing and like feedback? I'm like, well, it needs to happen, but like there's 2 things I always tell my athletes. It's like this sport is 100%, like it's 100%, 49% on the coach, 51% on the athlete. You at the end of the day are on the platform, or you are executing the lift if you're just a hobbyist.
Yeah.
I can't feel you through it. I can walk you through it. I can show you it. I can talk you through it. But you have to be the one executing. So like you've got to be doing the one critical thinking. When it comes to cueing, I think that's one of the things where like, unfortunately, we have sports or fitness paradigms where like there's a lot of cheerleading going on. And like it is an environment that's been built. And again, like my background is CrossFit. That's where like I was coaching before I switched into weightlifting full time, and I love it. I have no issues with it. Yeah. But it was an environment where, and you coached it, like it's a lot of like good job, like good, you're doing great. And it's like yeah. Then you have those people come to weightlifting gym and they're looking for that, constant rep feedback, it's like, I'm actually going to fuck you up if I talk to you every single rep, because you're going to dissociate. If I'm sitting there actually coaching you, I'm going to tell you what's wrong. Then you're going to start witch hunting 19 different fucking things because you're doing 19 different things wrong.
Yep.
Or you're going to think you're just doing terrible because I'm going to be giving you an answer if something's wrong each time.
I know. They just did the best lift of their life, even though there was issues, and then you just criticize it again.
Exactly.
You know? And sometimes it's like, that's the best lift I've ever seen you do. And that's enough feedback, you know?
Exactly.
And there's some pretty good like science out there on like how the intrinsic changes to movement do tend to be a little bit more long term than like just trying to like cue yourself through it. So if you can get them to feel the right things to feel, then they're going to develop a whole lot quicker than just trying to get them to think about the right things.
Yep.
You know, we cue them to try to get them to feel the right thing, but at some point they've got to figure out how to turn that cue into a feeling, and then they got to figure out how to like make corrections through those feelings, because that's really what's going to, you know, the physical feeling of changing something, the physical feeling of being able to change something is really where we get the long-term effects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well put. So, all right. At the end of this thing, I like to round it out. We do kind of like an end game. Today, we're going to try a new one. I don't watch that much TV, but I do know Jimmy Fallon tends to do some fun games. So we're going to try to do.
Okay.
We're going to try to do a game here that he does called Think Fast. So those of you that have never seen it, you can obviously go YouTube it. And Jimmy Fallon has, no offense to you, Chris, but way more famous co-host and visitors on his show. They're not necessarily as cool as mine. I do think Chris is cooler than most of Jimmy Fallon's guests. But basically what we're going to do is we have a series of questions here. I asked Chris, I believe, was that your first adventure into artificial intelligence?
It actually was. I had never
I've opened used worms.
Yeah. So it's going to be bad now.
Oh no. Hey, so quick story that was fun. So Tracy, I'm going to leave names out of this for the athletes, some of them. Tracy got asked by an athlete to develop a core workout program. This athlete sometimes says they want things and then doesn't do them.
Sure.
So I was like, Tracy, don't waste your fucking time. And we were sitting at the computer, so I just opened up Chat AI and I was like,
perfect.
Build me a core workout program, 5
wonderful
minutes long for 3 times a week. And it
pulled
up the workout. And she was like, that's easy, Matt. That's stupid. I could have wrote that. I was like, but you didn't, and I saved you time. It looked too easy. It's too easy for his level. And I was like, okay, make it harder. And it ramped it up.
Nice.
Like she's like, still seems easy. And I was like, make it harder. And it just kept ramping it up and to more difficult movements. And I was like, does that look better? And she's like, that looks a little bit better, but I think that one's still easy and that one's still easy. So I'm like, make this hard to where a beginner level gymnast would have difficulty with it. So it ramps it up. And some of the movements she like didn't know. So I had to like show her videos of it. And then I was like, all right, let's get fucking weird. And one of my athletes is Brianna, and her dad and family own a gymnastics facility. She was a level 8, or her sisters are all level 9.
Nice.
So I'm like, make me a gymnastics program that's for core strengthening, that is like a 30-minute workout, and for strengthening a level 9 gymnast core.
Nice.
How this workout? Tracy looked like she was looking at Aramaic. And Brianna's like, she was like,
that's
just
great.
blown away. She was like, this is impossible.
Nice.
Like, well, maybe that's just like the standard now, Brianna. Okay.
Yeah.
She's like, where's it from? And I'm like, Chat GPT.
It's from everywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, so I had Chris create a list of questions. Basically, what we do is we fire off the questions at each other. We're supposed to rapidly answer as fast as we can. It has a tendency. I played this game in person before, at like a developmental thing I did. But basically, you just fire off a series of questions, and you're supposed to answer as fast as
This
you
is probably not going to be a very fun and entertaining game for other people to watch, because I am like the chronically, I'm just known for pausing and thinking about every single thing I say.
No.
Everything I say. Somebody asks me a question, and I'm just quiet for a solid 10 seconds before I answer any question by anybody.
Media, can I make a timer on here?
Yeah.
Clap.
It's all right. I'll try to be as quick as possible.
So I basically had him put a prompt into GPT. I don't have the questions. I don't know what they are. But we'll try this out, right? Some of these times these games have flopped, but I think it's better than just being like, bye, have a great night.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, so I'll start. We'll knock these out. So Chris, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Don't lie. Don't be a liar. All right.
If I answer quickly, there's a good chance it's a lie.
First things that come to your head, man. All right. So I'm looking at my list over here. I'm not looking at something else. All right, here we go. All right. Chris, I want to be able to see you. I got to move the list over here.
Yeah, I'm going to try to line up my list as much as I can.
I need to see my face. So I'm going to cover my face.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what's the worst first food date?
Indian.
If animals could talk, which one would be the rudest?
Cats.
What's your superhero name and your useless power you have?
Oh, God. Pass.
Okay, what's the funniest word in the English language?
Funniest word in the English language. Fuck.
Right there. If you're a vegetable, which one would you be, Chris? And why?
Vegetable, I'd be... I mean, tomato's not really a vegetable, right? Isn't that technically a fruit?
Semantics.
Yeah. It's technically a fruit. But I feel like it goes with almost anything.
Okay. If you could swap lives with any cartoon character, who would it be?
Cartoon character, say Bob from Bob's Burgers. Live the simple life.
What's your go-to dance move, Chris?
Just the shoulders.
Just the shoulders, all right.
Just the shoulders. Yeah, I'm so white.
I was expecting like a dice roll or something. Oh God, this is the follow-up. If you were a flavor of ice cream, what would it be called?
Oh God. If I was a flavor of ice cream, it would be something spicy.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could have any animal as a pet, no matter how wild, what would it be?
Monkey.
If you had to wear a warning label, what would it warn people of?
It would just say no.
Oh my God. Oh, that's so interesting. I want to dive more into it. What's your secret talent that nobody knows about you?
I draw.
Ooh, I saw the drawing table behind you.
Yeah.
I figured you were either a fucking like architect or drafted boats or if you could be a fictional villain, who would you be?
Fictional villain, let's go with maybe just Bane for the sheer size.
Always want.
I've been such a small guy my whole life.
Oh my God. What's the most ridiculous fact you know?
How are these rapid fire questions?
Come on, man.
Most useless fact.
I could name all these.
But you've read them. That doesn't count.
This is actually my first time going through.
Is it? Is it? Oh, okay. You're a quick guy though. You've always been kind of fast in your feet.
You have to,
You know.
me or you'll get chewed apart.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't have any facts for you, man.
All right. If you could have an animal's tail, which one would you choose and why?
A monkey. It's another appendage. You can swing.
Okay, I like it. If you could rename yourself, what would your new name be?
I could probably be a Greg.
Okay.
I feel like I could be a Greg.
Greg that wears a shirt that says no.
Yeah, I could be a Greg that wears a shirt that says no with a fucking monkey tail.
What's your walkout song?
Ooh, Still Dre. Yeah, the Chronic.
We need to have somebody like recreate this character for like a WWE video game that we just
Yeah, I need to walk out flipping burgers.
Weirdest food combination that you like.
Man, I'm so boring when it comes to food. It's just so boring. It's probably like Chipotle with my whiskey.
You just had Chipotle, guys, by the way.
Yeah.
If you were a ghost and you could haunt somebody, who would you haunt? If it's a referee that screwed you, don't fucking say their name.
Yeah. I was trying. Like there was like 3 names that came to my mind, but I was like, but this is a weightlifting. This is a weightlifting podcast. Yeah. No, I'd for sure just go haunt. Like if I could haunt every ex I had, I would.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, that wasn't bad.
Okay.
I might just get you a shirt that says no on it though, and screen print. You might have the first. You might have the first podcast shirt that's custom printed.
There you go.
Just says no on it.
Just tough lips on the back.
No.
Just no.
All right, I'm gonna get prepared.
You know what? What's not that hasn't impressed me about the AI.
What?
Is I think there's a lot of those questions in here too.
Oh, well, you can type in give me 20 more.
It's all right. I just got I'll if I come up to them, I'll bounce around a little bit.
Like, yeah, I mean, you can make them up. I feel like I need to get posed. Like, here's my microphone. Do I sound more in depth now?
Yeah, you do.
Okay,
now you should have been doing that from the get-go.
That's way too deep.
All right. If you could eat only one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Fucking pizza, dude. All day, every day.
Nice.
Yeah.
If animals could talk, which one would be the rudest?
I think birds.
Yeah, I bet birds would be assholes.
I feel like birds just talk shit all day. They start at 4 a.m.
Yeah, they're just yelling.
Yes. Thank you.
No, you don't hear many just talking.
Yeah.
Would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
100 duck-sized horses, because I could kick them.
Yeah, I could fuck them up.
Yeah, I just like plow through them.
What's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Literally my basic training haircut. Literally that haircut I'll remember the rest of my life, because the guy had a fucking vacuum hose like stuck to the
shears.
The shears, and I was like, what the hell have I entered? And I remember that day for the rest of my life.
If you could live in any TV show universe, which one would it be and why?
TV universe, probably Heroes. If you're old enough to know that show.
Yeah, that's a good one. Why would you do that?
Because people just start getting random superpowers in the world and it turns to shit.
Yeah, it does.
Whole
Does.
world throws the shit because of it.
It does, man. That show goes off the deep end too. It's a good reference. I hadn't seen Heroes in years.
Yeah. They tried to make like a spin-off.
Did they?
I think so, yeah.
What's the most useless talent that you have?
Besides talking too much? I can crack the knuckles in my hands by like just doing that.
Oh, yeah, you could hear it. Yeah, it doesn't do much for anybody. What's the strangest thing you believed in as a child?
Oh my God. Okay, I convinced myself that I went whale watching in Lake Michigan.
Oh, like you believed it.
Dude, I legit fucking I believed that I went whale watching in Lake
Were you
Michigan.
telling people you went whale watching?
No, I told my parents I did this. The
Your parents like, no, you didn't.
And my dad was just like, no, you didn't. I go, no, I did. And I like convinced myself that I did this action. I did not in fact do this.
My sister had me convinced that I couldn't drink water after swallowing a watermelon seed. And I was so scared.
That's amazing.
If you could eliminate one household chore forever, what would it be?
Mopping.
Yeah, that sounds good. If aliens landed on Earth tomorrow and offered you a trip to their planet, would you go?
Absolutely. Gone. Bye. 4-star.
What's your, as a wrestler, what's your walkout song?
Definitely, definitely something that doesn't even make sense, like White Wedding by Billy Idol. I feel like that is so intimidating.
That Smell by Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, like it has
yeah. Just something that
at all.
Everybody's like, "Who is this
like
guy?"
It starts. It just dim. Smoke comes out. It's like, hey, little sister. Like something bad is about to happen.
Yeah, like this guy's probably gonna murder him. Would you rather have a rewind button for your life or a pause button?
Ooh. I think pause nowadays. I think pause. Yeah. Probably
Sure.
pause. But like that's one of those things that's changed, right? Had you hit me up with that like 7 years ago, it'd probably be like rewind.
Yeah.
So
what's the weirdest thing you've seen someone do in their car while driving?
Weirdest thing, I guess, is probably different than like dumbest. But I saw a woman curling her hair while reading a book, which means she had her curling iron somehow plugged in to her car.
Yeah, I was like, she plugged it into the cigarette lighter.
She had the book. It was like a thin book, so I don't know what it was, but it was on her steering wheel. And she was doing both these activities. I was like, that is wild.
It makes me wonder if her head tilts when she turns.
That's true.
Yeah.
a lot of bilateral motion going on there.
Yeah. What's the weirdest thing? Oh, sorry, that's the same one. Yeah, here's a good one. You just got a new pet. If your pet could talk, what would it say about you?
If the new puppy could talk, it would probably say that I'm really warm and toasty, because I think it just uses me for the warmth.
Just been snuggling up a lot.
Yeah, and just comes to me first versus the other members of the family. So I'm the warmth. If
you could use one word the rest of your life, what would it be?
Fuck.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people would choose that. Because it could also go either way. It could be positive. It could be negative.
Exactly like all the skits tell us it needs to be used.
If you could only wear one color the rest of your life, what would it be?
Black.
Fucking lame.
Yeah. As the guy who literally just called us.
said no.
No, and each Chipotle has this exciting meal.
Yeah. I had whiskey with it.
Do you shake your shoulders while you eat it?
I'm pretty happy when I'm eating it. Let's see. Some of these others are the same.
All right, we'll do one more.
We'll do one more. Would you rather fight off a zombie apocalypse with a spoon or a fork?
A fork, I feel.
Seems like a better weapon.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a spork option, I'd definitely do the spork because then I could
Yeah,
use it in life. But
tie the two together.
yeah,
Yeah.
a spork is mighty, man. But all right, Chris. I appreciate your time. Obviously,
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
you coming on. Always have fun at the meets when I get to hang out with you. Enjoy sharing platforms with you, seeing your athletes grow. But beyond that, man, Chris, where can people find you? And if they want to get advice or anything like that when it comes to gymnastics, where can they reach out to you or find your content? Stuff
Sure. My website's bluewavefitness.com. My gym site is Blue Wave Weightlifting. My Instagram gym is Blue Wave Weightlifting, and then my personal Instagram is C_Lofland. DMing on there's probably the quickest way, or you can go to the website. You can find my email address there on through that and reach out. I check my email religiously, so anything like that, any way you're getting a hold of me, you'll get a hold of me.
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, man. I
Also,
appreciate
we've got AO2 coming up in Fort Worth, so
that's
hopefully we'll
true.
see you there. And then anybody out there that would like to volunteer to help load, we're looking for
I was
loaders.
wondering if we were gonna do a plug. If you want a free rogue t-shirt,
Yeah. If you want a free Rogue T-shirt and a sandwich
meal
from
ticket.
a cool, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Chris, man. Have a good night. And those of you guys, definitely hit him up. Definitely go follow him. He posts a lot of good content. And always just a really nice and genuine guy. So, Chris, have a good night, buddy.
Yeah, later, man.
Thanks.